Joining me now is the president of Georgia, that's Salome Zurashvili. She is a guest we've had on repeatedly on the show. Madam President, welcome back to the show. I just want to show our viewers these live pictures that are coming to us from Tbilisi in Georgia. Let me just pause to listen to some sound. President, 11 minutes past 11 or so. And I want to pick up with, right now, the images we're seeing seem to be pretty peaceful, but we have been seeing, Madam President, pretty violent crackdown over the last few days across Georgia. You have suggested on X that this is a deliberate tactic by the police or the armed forces. You said going after journalists and political leaders. Can you just expand on that?
Oh, yes, there is clearly a strategy. It's not the armed forces. It has nothing to do with the armed forces. It's these special forces that do not belong either to the police or even to the anti-demonstration police. It's a very special black units that are not identified, are wearing masks, so you cannot distinguish them, and they have no numbers of identification, which is contrary to any international rules. And those are those that are carrying out this violent repression on the protesters that are very pacific protesters. And tonight is a step further, that the demonstrations had hardly started very peacefully. It was not as it was in the previous days after a number of hours. They were just preventing the demonstrators to carry out their demonstration. It's really fighting against the freedom of expression, freedom of protest. It's a basic rights that are violated. Not to say anything about the way the people that are arrested are treated once arrested, because it's what the lawyers who can then get to them have seen, that their 80% of them have injuries to the face and to the head, which demonstrates really systematic type of treatment, of inhuman treatment. So all of that policy, it's not a reaction to some forceful demonstration. It's a policy to try to limit the expression of the Georgian people that is expressed in many cities around the country, will of the Georgian people not to go towards Russia, to keep its European path, to keep its right to be an independent and free country among its European community.
And on that, we have from Amnesty International, just in the last hour, Madam President, from the International Deputy Director for Eastern Europe, he said, talked about the physical, psychological and legal harm on those exercising their right to protest. He talked about hundreds of protesters dispersed, arrested by police, who have faced, in some cases, that amounts to torture and other ill treatment. Reports of severe injuries, including broken facial bones, fractures and concussions among the detainees. And that, he says, is mounting. How worried are you? Because the determinations we can see right now on our air, they are determined to take to the streets every day so far. And the numbers seem to be growing. I know you were on the streets too. You were protesting a few days ago, Madam President. How concerned are you about the violence against these protesters?
Well, I can only be concerned. I was not protesting on the streets. I went to see the protesters once, which is what a president should do, but I cannot be protesting on the streets with them. I'm following every moment and every hour. I'm very concerned, but I'm also very confident that these people are going to continue, whatever happens. Already we are seeing something we have never seen before in Georgia, which is that this protest not only is getting stronger in Tbilisi every day, but it has reached out to the cities in the provinces, which never happened. And almost every city in Georgia today is protesting very spontaneously. And there, because there are no special forces at this point in time, we can see how peaceful are these demonstrations, where people are asking just two things. One is, give me my vote back. which was stolen during the elections. And second, give me my European future back. And that around the one major demand, which is let's have new elections. So there is no revolutionary slogans here. There is nothing radical. It's a very peaceful, familial, almost demonstrations, as long as the police or these black forces do not start moving in. And they're asking something that is their constitutional right to express their will, the elections, and reaffirm what we have all seen along all these years, that 80% of the population of this country wants its European future, wants its independence to continue, and does not want to go towards Russia, which is the will only of this ruling party that has forgotten about the obligation of the Constitution, and that is supported only by a handful of people that have vested interests in this one party and one man.
On those 2 points that, you know, give me your vote back, give us back to the EU in terms of future, we heard from the Georgian Prime Minister today. I want to play that first for our viewers, and we can talk after that. Have a listen to what he said very briefly.
I had a discussion about European integration with diplomats today at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they were instructed to put maximum efforts into the EU integration process.
So basically hinting there that his country still aims to join the EU, despite, of course, halting those accession talks. Do you buy that, Madam President?
No, nobody buys it, but it's another sign that even among the last remaining supporters of this one-party rule, even there, people want to hear that they too are heading towards Europe, which nobody, of course, believes. There wouldn't be this mass of people on the streets if they were not thinking that this one-man rule is taking them towards Russia. The Russian law, all the Russian laws that have been adopted since the beginning of the year, the Russian elections that we've had, which were very clearly, very systematically organized, the frauds were all over the place. All of that is a very clear sign. And if nobody sees these signs, it's enough to listen to Mr. Putin, to Mr. Medvedev, to Mr. Dugin, and the compliments they are addressing to the Prime Minister bravery to turn back his back on Europe and turn towards better relations with Russia.
We have seen Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania imposing sanctions, I believe, in something like 11 Georgian officials. We've also seen the US and the EU criticizing what they see as growing authoritarianism in Georgia and the aggression by the police. I wonder, you've got something like a matter of weeks, I think, Madam President, in power. What would you like to see from the EU, from the US, in terms of response and in terms of action here?
Well, I'm talking to the leaders almost twice, 3 times, 4 times a day. I've been talking to the Baltic leaders. I've been talking to the Polish president. I've been talking to the new European Commission that has come into place, and to the president of the European Council. And to all of them, I think I'm saying just one thing, that this country is never going to surrender to Russia, that this country wants democracy, wants freedom, wants Europe, and wants new elections to be able, in a free and fair environment, which was not the case, to say its will, to say where it wants to go. And that is a right that every people in Europe should have. And Georgia has deserved, over the years, has been fighting for that, has been very resilient, even with occupied territories. And Georgian people deserve what this right is, to come closer to Europe and to eventually open these accession negotiations. And it is not the right of a government that was not elected because the elections were rigged. It's not their right to change the course of the Georgian foreign policy and the Georgian future. Nobody has given them a mandate for that, not even their own supporters.
Madam President, as always, appreciate you taking the time to speak to us on the show. Thank you very much, Madam President. And of course,